Good morning. It's quite unusual for us as Nigerians to be this divided, dialectic over our sense of morality. Given the reactions from many quarters, it's quite clear that both men and women are outraged over the recent attempts or efforts on the part of our lawmakers and equal breakers to enshrine a conduct that, in my opinion, overtly demeans one gender in our Constitution. And from all indications, no words or reassurance seem to douse the anger and heated emotions of many, especially women. No matter the nuances, denials, and excuses put forward, the choices we need to make now for ourselves and for generations to come must be weighed against other social elements and time. I must remind our men in positions of power to be very mindful of the path they drag society along, because once those choices are made, we will forever live with the consequences, the shameful and legal liability these choices place on our democratic process. The recent awakening of the issue over what age a girl should be considered fit to marry or forced to marry is necessary and equally explosive. Necessary in the sense that it might finally bring to light the conduct of men in their dark bedrooms for ages. Explosive also because there's a clear fault line of religious and cultural divisions that's constantly functional, simmering, that could further present added burdens on a fragile national peace and unity. Here we must exercise considerable caution and reflection before our Congress offers its stamp of approval to enshrine the immoral clause in our Constitution. Since the beginning of time, men have ruled the world and imposed their wishes and desires upon women without much regard to their harshness and fairness. Over centuries, progress has also been made to rectify this social injustice, the unlimited overpowering influence of man over woman. What should have been described as humankind became mankind, and male-dominant adjectives have since been the norm. Thanks to democracy and the determined efforts of both genders, the conditions and demeaning views of the woman have evolved for good. Like I've always said, democracy did not come to us, but rather we sought and welcomed it. And having done so, we are compelled to live out the true meaning of democracy and its values. It is a lifestyle, and we should be growing in that lifestyle, making choices that reflect and guarantee our full understanding of the tenets of the process. We live in a false life, assault and defeat the accompanying values and principles of democracy if one gender of our society cannot exercise their true right of choice, of decisions, and are forced at any time of their lives to accept marriages to men, sometimes men who are essentially strangers in their lives. Any parents or parent who enjoins or forces their young daughters to marry, even after they are over 18 years, are violating their right to make their decisions and their choices. The choices should be made for the woman and by the woman alone. Family members and friends could advise, but should never compel. I keep hearing certain men repeatedly say they would give away their daughters, and such statements bemoans me. This kind of statement impresses upon any intelligent mind the notion that women or girls are some articles of trade or gas bequeathed property to men. It is pathetic and uncivilized, especially for a nation that touts itself as one of the most educated in the world. And for men to indiscriminately stoop lower to seek underage girls enter into lifetime relationships is child abuse and contribute to their molestation. It is tantamount to child trafficking and slavery. And the sex that is indulged as a result is outrightly rape. If our constitution deems slavery and rape as unlawful acts, that same constitution should never accommodate any clause that sanctions early child marriage. It is both a legal and moral contradiction if it does. Anyway, our congressmen look at it. No matter the nuances, it is still beguiling, perversion, unbecoming of men who sit at the national level making laws. It is simply sacrificing our young girls for depraved men's pleasure and fulfillment. Any civilized society ought to draw a clear line between adulthood and childhood for the sake of marriage and sex. Such lines should be eloquent in the laws of the land. They should be very punitive when violated. We have proceeded for decades, ignoring common sense and decency in our nation. If we do not spell out clearly the moral borderlines as they pertain to our young babies, we risk an endless rape of our girls, and it's foreboding. I cannot believe the silence of many men and women in high places, including the presidency. The strange excuses and reasons offered by some of our congressmen are questionable, suspicious, and altogether untenable. It should be condemned and discouraged. Our young girls, Christians and Muslims, should not be tools or items for political pandering. They should be protected, nurtured, raised, and educated, and enjoy the same rights and privileges that boys do. And the decision to enter into any kind of relationship should rest solely upon their shoulders. This is my view of democracy in action. This practice of forced marriage and servitude is not confined to Muslims as some might assume. Christian families have forced their young girls into marriages due to poverty and death of parents. I understand the general uniqueness of religions and cultures. Decades back, some cultures practiced cannibalism and human sacrifice. In fact, every culture had elements of inhumane practices. Fortunately, education has helped in bringing about change. These cultures had to accept and alter their traditional beliefs and values in compliance with modern and civilized and democratic values. Even in religion, there was a time divorce and other practices in Christianity were almost assumed sacrilegious. But that was in our past. Values have evolved, and we can argue endlessly as to the social utility of such evolution, the pros and cons. The point is that nothing can or will ever remain static. Humankind cannot hold back the hand of time, and how we adapt to changing times is part of the human growth. We essentially are created or made as for the atheists among us who resent the world creates to experience new ideas and face new puzzles each day and each season. We have transited from the medieval era to the present millennium, and we ought not be going back. The civil right for both genders is a foregone conclusion, and it's not negotiable. It is part of the inalienable right of all. This is not an affront on any religion or culture. I do not desire that I be misinterpreted. I apologize if I offend my northern brothers. I understand how certain groups might desire to retain remnants of an old or ancient practice, but whatever must be retained, it must not be done at the expense of our teenage girls. They must be allowed, for lack of a better word, to grow into full-fledged women. They are part of the future we must work hard to ensure and make more promising to both genders. They have shared interests with boys. Their dreams and aspirations must coincide with their male counterparts. The process of elimination and subjugation must not be further encouraged. Gender equality ought to be the mantra of our generation. The supreme and infallibility assumption of men in African culture must be revisited and changed before we are forced with organized revolt on the part of women that has the potential to completely force the kind of change that we might all regret. A peaceful transitional dynamics that leads to greater understanding between men and women is urgent because our forefathers lived it does not make it right. And those who use fear of a new order that threatens our society are just fear-mongering. With great and abiding love for my Muslim brothers, Nigerian constitutions must not give reverence and accommodation to every practice in the name of religion or culture. Our progress must be measured not in wealth and power, but in our simple, basic, general aptitude and mentality. Child marriage, sex, and even as servants are antiquated and inhumane. The practice must be abandoned and the stringent laws enacted to punish offenders. While I acknowledge the failing marriage institution across all religions and cultures and the need to find lasting solutions to reclaim and preserve it, such actions must be exercised with fairness. We must somehow find enduring love between the sexes without subjugating one gender to subservience. In my opinion, the fear of subservience plays a leading role in relationship dysfunction and divorce. Men must find ways to reassure women of their benevolence, equal partnership, and women must approach relationships with some degree of trust, honesty, and greater commitment. The tit for tat model, the power play syndrome, the commercial of the heart, the unfortunate and corrupting influence of money and material things have all assisted in trivializing marriage and become the bane of many men, women, and children. Albeit, childhood must be exceptionally protected from pedophilic tendencies in the name of culture and religion. Thank you, and may God bless you.